It's a question we've all wondered about but rarely ask out loud. Why do men have nipples? They don't produce milk, they're not necessary for survival, and they seem to serve no obvious purpose. And I bet you didn't know that their existence reveals a fascinating truth about human development. We all start life on the female developmental path. Let's explore the strange biological journey that gives men this seemingly purposeless feature, and what it teaches us about how evolution actually works. Every human embryo, regardless of genetic sex, follows the same developmental blueprint for the first 6 weeks of development. During this initial period, the embryo develops along what's essentially the female anatomical pathway, the developmental default for mammals. At around 6 to 7 weeks after conception, a critical developmental fork in the road occurs. For embryos with Y chromosomes, the SRY gene activates, triggering the release of testosterone and other hormones that begin masculinizing the developing body. But here's the key. By the time this hormone cascade begins, the embryonic nipples have already formed. They develop around week 4 to 5 before sexual differentiation begins. By the time testosterone starts influencing development, the basic blueprint for nipples is already established on the chest wall. This sequence creates what scientists call a developmental artifact, a feature that exists not because it was directly selected for, but because it emerged from the developmental sequence of how humans form. Male nipples are essentially along for the ride in our embryological journey. You might wonder why evolution hasn't eliminated male nipples over millions of years. The answer lies in a principle called developmental inertia, or the neutral selection concept. For a trait to be eliminated through natural selection, it needs to be actively harmful, creating a reproductive disadvantage. Male nipples, while not beneficial in most circumstances, don't create any survival or reproductive disadvantage. They're evolutionary neutral, neither helping nor harming reproductive success in any significant way. From an energy perspective, evolving a separate developmental pathway just to eliminate nipples in males would require more complex genetic machinery than simply keeping them. Evolution favors simplicity and efficiency. If a neutral feature doesn't harm survival, the simpler developmental path is preserved. This same principle explains other sexually monomorphic features, traits that both sexes share despite primarily benefiting only one sex. The basic mammary tissue underlying nipples is present in all humans, with hormones determining its development rather than entirely different genetic paths. Interestingly, male nipples aren't completely functionless. The basic mammary tissue exists in men, just in an undeveloped state. Under certain hormonal conditions, male mammary tissue can develop and even produce milk, a phenomenon called male lactation. This has been documented in various scenarios. Certain medical conditions that increase prolactin, some hormone treatments, and even during recovery from severe starvation, when hormone levels fluctuate dramatically. The World Health Organization has documented cases of male lactation, particularly in periods of extreme stress like war or famine. Male nipples also contain the same nerve endings as female nipples, making them similarly sensitive. This means they can serve as erogenous zones, providing pleasurable sensations, and potentially enhancing reproductive behavior, giving them at least some functional role. From an evolutionary perspective, the potential for occasional functionality, however rare, further reduces any selective pressure that might eliminate them. Male nipples are just one example of features humans retain due to our developmental history. Our bodies contain numerous other evolutionary remnants that serve limited or no purpose. The appendix, once thought entirely vestigial, may play a minor role in immune function and gut bacteria storage, but we can live perfectly well without it. Wisdom teeth were useful for our ancestors' tougher diets, but often cause problems in modern humans. The tailbone, or coccyx, remains from our tailed ancestors, now serving only as an attachment point for a few muscles. Perhaps most similar to male nipples are the Müllerian duct remnants in men, tiny structures that would have developed into fallopian tubes and parts of the uterus in females, but remain as microscopic tissue traces in males because, like nipples, they form before sexual differentiation completes. Even goosebumps, the hair-raising response that would make a furry mammal appear larger and warmer, remain in relatively hairless humans as another evolutionary holdover that never created enough disadvantage to be eliminated. Male nipples illustrate a crucial principle about evolution. It's not a perfect designer but rather a tinkerer working with existing materials. Natural selection doesn't create optimal organisms from scratch. It modifies existing developmental pathways in ways that are good enough for survival and reproduction. This good enough approach explains many human anatomical quirks, from our backward-wired retinas to the awkward routing of our laryngeal nerve. Evolution preserves working systems even if they're not ideally designed. Understanding this helps correct a common misconception about evolution, that every feature must have an adaptive purpose. In reality, many features exist simply because they emerged from developmental processes and weren't harmful enough to be eliminated. So male nipples exist primarily because all humans start development on the same basic anatomical path, and by the time sexual differentiation begins, nipples have already formed. Evolution hasn't eliminated them because they create no significant disadvantage and occasionally might even provide some minor benefits. This seemingly simple anatomical curiosity reveals deeper truths about human development and evolutionary principles, showing how our bodies are products of ancient developmental pathways shaped by the efficient, good enough process of natural selection. If you found this exploration of human biology fascinating, hit subscribe for more videos that reveal the unexpected science behind things you've always wondered about.